manhood trap, from Epstein's island to Musk's baby farm, how the right redefined masculinity as control. And, you know, what got me going on this was James Carville last week saying that Democrats need to do more to reach out to young men. And, you know, he was like, you know, why don't we talk about football more and beer and stuff like that? And, you know, I'm sorry, but I think this is just a BS dead-end strategy that risks ratifying the worst elements of what, in my opinion, right now in America and frankly around the world, we're experiencing as a crisis of masculinity that's corroding our politics, it's poisoning our culture and our young people, and it's endangering our democracy, and it's coming from the top down. I mean, here you got Donald Trump, an adjudicated rapist, according to the judge in his case. A New York jury found him liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll. Then he starts, you know, pardoning people who are accused of these kinds of crimes. Epstein wasn't an outlier. Epstein was a prototype. He was a predator who operated in plain sight. He was protected by the powerful, and he was normalized by the elite. I mean, his crimes weren't hidden. They were ignored, they were downplayed, and they were rationalized. And this shows how deeply entrenched rape culture is, not just in the fringes of politics, but at its very core. And this, I think, is one of the reasons why people are so flipped out about this. You know, Trump has pardoned a bunch of criminals on this thing. He brought back the Tate brothers from Romania, and now he's cutting a deal to build a billion-dollar property in Romania. I mean, he is cashing in on the presidency in ways that have never happened before in the history of America. And we're seeing this all over the place. I mean, rape culture isn't just at the top, it's everywhere, especially in the digital spaces that young men inhabit. Pornography has become basically the sex education that young boys are turning to, because any 10-year-old with a smartphone has access to just violent misogynistic content that normalizes coercion and degradation. And it's not just a parental issue. This is a cultural emergency. You know, this content is changing how an entire generation understands the relationships between sex, power, and consent. And Trump's best friend, Jeffrey Epstein, was an avatar of that twisted worldview. I mean, they were reportedly best buddies for years, excuse me. Epstein said it was a decade, that for 10 years he was Donald Trump's best friend. And they partied together, they traveled on his jet. You know, I mean, this is just wild stuff. And now you've got Elon Musk. You know, he's got, what, 14 children by 4 different women, and talking about an underpopulation crisis. He's basically using women like, you know, toaster ovens for babies. And then you've got the tradwife movement, you know, the traditional wife movement that is being pushed so hard on the right. You know, along with the browning of America causing this great replacement theory freak out. You know, Trump saying, if Hillary Clinton can't satisfy her husband, what makes her think she can satisfy America? Right. To telling Esquire magazine, this is a quote from Donald Trump. He said, you know, it really doesn't matter what the media write as long as you got a young and beautiful piece of ass, end quote. I mean, this kind of stuff. J.D. Vance saying that women should stay with their husbands even if they're abused, and that America should return to a time when you could raise a family on a single middle-class job. And that wasn't about economics that he was talking about. It was about putting women back in the bedroom and the kitchen. I mean, that's, you know, let's be clear about this. These guys, they're like, oh, let's go back to the 1950s. Let's go back to the 1960s. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we did that? I think, you know, along with the fetal personhood movement, which is just crazy. But what they're forgetting is that employers could refuse to hire women because of their gender as recently as 1964. Home sellers and real estate agents could refuse to sell a home to a woman up until 1974. It wasn't until 1988 that the law said landlords could no longer refuse to rent to women. Spousal rape was not criminalized until 1993. When Louise and I got married in 1972, she couldn't get a credit card or sign a mortgage without my signature or that of her older brother or her father. I mean, you know, she couldn't serve on a jury when we were married. She couldn't get a no-fault divorce. She couldn't enroll in an Ivy League college. And if she'd had an unwanted pregnancy, she would have been out of luck. I mean, in 20 states now, Republicans have succeeded in removing from women one of the most important options that lets them stay in the workplace, right? Access to abortion if you have an accidental or unwanted pregnancy. And now they're going after birth control, and they're talking about bringing back the Comstock Act. I mean, they're even working hard on ending no-fault divorce. J.D. Vance pushing this idea. And they're completely ignoring the reality that when no-fault divorce laws were passed, we saw a 16% decrease in female suicide in the United States, a 30% decrease in intimate partner violence, and a 10% drop in the number of women murdered by their husbands because of no-fault divorce. And Republicans now want to do away with that. They're trying to do away with equal pay for equal work laws that have to do with women, calling it DEI. The principal recipients of DEI, the principal beneficiaries of DEI are white women. But, you know, Republicans, they don't want their white women out there working. They want them, you know, in the kitchen and the bedroom. That's it. So what do? I think we need to redefine masculinity, make it strength defined by compassion, power defined by surface, leadership defined by respect. And there are examples out there. Look at John Tester. Here's a Montana farmer, a Marine veteran, fights for working families without preening bravado. Look at Joe Biden, you know, comforting grieving mothers. He brought moral clarity and empathy where so many others had failed. Look at the single fathers, the teachers, the firefighters, the nurses, the community organizers, men who show up because they care, not to conquer. True masculinity uplifts, and this is what we need to be doing. I mean, let Republicans hang on to Trump, Musk, and Tate as their sick, twisted role models. Democrats should amplify the real men, the compassionate, the just, the fierce protectors of freedom and equality, and reject the calls from these Democratic consultants saying, oh, we need to pander to these bizarre young men. No, thank you. We need to teach them, but not pander to them. What say you? I'll be right back.